Hello and welcome to another proof of concept of my hover train. To go again over everything, it's a simple platform that is here with a few hover engines that are set only to push, and we have four thrusters in the front, the cockpit and the merge block. We have four thrusters in the back and a reactor. Two lights in front and back, red and white, to indicate in which direction the train is going. A welder here, a welder here, a few welders here, because, well, I move this thing with thruster override autonomously, and yeah, the dampeners don't always work that's precisely. So sometimes I just bump into the wheels here for my little train bumper, and so the welders can directly repair everything. I have 5 small cargo containers on this platform, 2 gyroscopes, and a few timer blocks, although the timer blocks only um, act as switches. So we have 8 timer blocks per uh, um, for thruster increase and 8 timer blocks for thruster decrease. We have a timer block that switches the connector lock, and we have of course the yellow timer block. This is just the waiting timer. So let's say how long does this platform need to wait here on this station. On the other side we have the same for the other direction, so it's just mirrored. We have a few programmable blocks here. Well, one is just for the automatic LCD. It's just how fast are we, what have we loaded, just nothing really serious. The other one is the easy slide changer. It's just changing the front lights to white and the back lights to red, and vice versa. It in uh, depends in which direction the train is moving, because this train is moving in both directions. And one really, it's not really important, but it makes a thing a lot easier. It's called auto align to gravity or something. It does only that your gyroscopes get an override, so that uh, that they perfectly align to the gravity. They don't. If it's on like this right now, and I move my mouse, nothing happens because it's just fixed in one direction. Because all my thrusters are just put to align to gravity. All my gyroscopes, sorry. So this is quite handy because whenever I was jumping in my cockpit doing some things, well, normally you suddenly start moving your mouse and then the thing starts turning, and I don't want that. So the whole system works with uh, sensors. I have only timers where it is really necessary, and the most of them, they just act as switches and not as timers. Like for the acceleration or deceleration of the speed, I need I need 8 times speed acceleration thruster override. So I need 8 timers, and they are just linked together via trigger now. So it's nearly instant. Well, we have this piston here that extend if the platform arrives, the train arrives, and connects to the platform, and also pushes the platform a little bit further on, so it's just not hanging there, and it always starts at the same starting point. So on the train itself, we have a few sensors. We have 2 sensors here. This sensor is just for the timer block that tells the train how long it should wait in the station, and it's triggered via this bar. So it drives under it, triggers, and the timer for the waiting time starts. This one here is for the it's for decreased thruster override. And this one is triggered here on this bar. Going back here, we have one decreased thruster override for the other direction as well. And this one is triggered here with this bar. I don't need to put a stop timer on here because on this end here we got a turning lift. So the train arrives there, then it lifts up and get turned 90 degrees and go again there to the second station. So I don't need a wait timer here. I do this in another way, I will explain later. So the station itself got 2 sensors, sorry. One sensor here. This sensor just is triggered with large ships, and it tells the piston to just retract. This sensor here tells the piston from the connector to extend. And both are set to large ships. So because the platform is built out of large blocks, so if a large ships come around here, it activates. For the sensors on the platform, they are just triggering stations and nothing else. Because well, the rails and everything is a station and not a ship and nothing. Okay, then moving on to here, we have a sensor here. This one from this gap to this gap. That's the corner and the lift. Go down here, starts here. So we have a rotor here. On this rotor we have 6 pistons in total that will lift up the whole thing. We have the same station like we saw right there, back there, but with no connector. I put a merge block on there, and the reason for that is I can show you. I tell you later. So this bar here is just to tell the piston here to retract. So when the and it's set to trigger ships, large ships in my case. So the ship arrives here, triggers this, and tells the piston to retract. So nothing will really happen because it's already retract. Then if the train arrives here, this sensor tells the piston to extend. So this one extend and merges with the train. This sensor here sets triggers this timer block, which is used as a switch to activate the whole lift, turning, lifting thing. And this detector here is not triggering large grid, it is triggering a subgrid. So if the train arrives here, this sensor will not be triggered and start moving the lift in any direction as soon as until it's merged up with this merge block here. So in this way we can make sure that if the train arrives here and it's not merged, nothing will happen, and hopefully we don't sacrifice Klang another station. Going down here, we have, of course, all these funny merge blocks here and here. And these merge blocks are only for if we turn this thing with a train on it. It turns in this direction and then bump and swing a little bit back and try to get there again and bump again. And for I don't really like this, I put some merge blocks in here. So the first bump I always get, the merge blocks are not fast enough or quick enough. But with the second bump we merges and it's stable and the train can leave. So what do we have then? Yeah, this timer block is our switch to trigger first the rotor to reverse, just signal reverse, and for the pistons also just the signal reverse. So in this way we can use the same trigger for going up or going down because it's just reversing the process. At the same time the merge block is switched off. Then the thing starts turning and lifting, and if this turns over this sensor, the merge blocks are turned on again so they can snap in the new place. One thing that was kind of tricky is how can I tell the train automatically when it can leave the station? Well, of course I can just count the time and put a timer in and trigger it via a timer, but I don't want to do this because I want to make really sure that everything is quite on place. So the turn is finished and the lift is finished when the starts for the train to move again is getting out. So I come with this solution here. I have two pistons here and I have two pistons here, one for the up and one for down. So for example, if this one here is turning, we have one sensor here that if the rotor turned the whole thing to here, this sensor activates and extend one of these pistons. And for the up part I have a sensor here, so if this moves up and is high enough, this sensor will trigger the other piston to extend. And on this piston I have another sensor that is triggered for about 1 meter, so it's triggered only if both pistons are fully extended. And this sensor tells the train you can start now again. In this way, the train will only try to move if the height is right and the turn is finished. I put a 5 seconds delay in it because of my two bumps I have in each directions. That space engineers, I can't do anything against it, but mainly if something goes wrong and train or something stops at the wrong distance, wrong side, uh, it won't it just stop the whole process because it's not timer related. So, but now we have extended these two pistons and we need to retract them again. So if the train leaves here on this track in this direction, it passes this sensor, and this sensor just tell these two pistons to retract. This sensor here on this thing, this is again telling this piston to extend. Like this one. Am I right? I'm not quite sure. What are you doing? Ah, you're just doing this. I don't need you anymore. Sorry, was a mistake from my side. It was before I needed that. So it's always this sensor on the platform that tells this piston to extend, and the two sensors here and here telling the piston to retract again, so everything is out of the way. So the train comes here, starts to turn, starts to lift and leave the track on this way. And here it's the same like in the starter base, just a few welders just in case, because dampers don't work always the same. A little bit here and a little bit there is always the thing. Okay. And yeah, well, one more thing, I just cut the whole thing here for the two stations, so the stations are separate grids. So if you want to make this thing longer, you can do it. Just cut it somewhere so the system have a few separate grids and not one really long grid and start to mess with things. Right here is the first version. It's just going left to right with a little conveyor thing, so it can load something here and unload something there. It quite works quite well, and I put this timer here on 1 minute, so it has the time to load something. This works quite well. This here worked quite well. Let's see if it does what it's supposed to do. So this one is locked, everything is on. Start the process. So this switched off, lights are going to red, acceleration is happening. Now we're passing this one here, and you see, that's what I meant. And now this timer activates and starts to lift. As soon as this is connected, this sensor will react, not before. So this goes up here. Can see down here. Now it's the first piston coming in. The second piston's coming in. The merge block is merged, so this thing is stable. And the train starts moving. And this one tells the piston to retract again. So this one goes here. the sensor tell the piston to extend. It pushes this till here and then lock. Wait for a special time. You can see it here. Now it's going again. So if it's moving in this direction, the connector here is just switched off. And if it moves in the other direction, the connector is switched on again. So now we're arriving here. Braking. You see, this is not reacting. As soon as this is locked, now it's reacting. Because now it's a subgrid, and now the sensor can react to something. Let's go down to here where we can see the pistons. So if we turn and are now there, the first piston is there, and here is the sensor for the height here. The second piston comes out, it's locked, and the train goes again. Gets the signal to retract here. Is a little bumpy over the things, but normally should work. Now it's here, getting pushed a little bit, so it's got the right distance again. Sometimes it stops where it is right now, or bumps a little bit in it. It depends on how the game would like to treat me. So the timer is going, and I put the timer on a really short time so we don't have to wait that long, and it's going back there again. This might come in handy if you have kind of tunnels in different directions and different heights, or you have a mining thing somewhere down there and you want to let the train run on the top side, of course, because it's less work. But in the mining you have to go about, let's say, 50 meters to load something. Then this could come in handy. So both pistons are extended, the thing is locked, and this goes away. Piston is retracting again, yes. So let's have a look from here. I think it's quite a nice look from here, and have a look one more. Put through, maybe something happens and I can show you why it's not a problem if something don't work, because it's not related on timers, it's related on sensors. And for this, if the train stops somewhere here or is not connected properly, nothing happens. So if we normally have a lag like this, it easily can mess with your timers. So you see, that prevents a lot of things. One thing I discovered here is that sensors can detect subgrids, but only the first subgrid. So we have a rotor here, then the bar there with the merge blocks, and then two pistons on top. So the thing up here with the piston and the merge block is the subgrid of a subgrid of a subgrid. The second and the third subgrid are not, the sensor won't trigger at a third or a second subgrid, only the first subgrid. So you can't switch on or off your merge block. Let's say if you put a sensor on top of the train instead of here to activate the lift, because the sensor here we have the third subgrid, and therefore it won't trigger anything. I can see here we have a small issue here, but that's not quite a thing. I just can get rid of this. There we go. Now you don't bump into things anymore. It's going here, and merge block is there. It's merged. And also the merge blocks here, they are definitely switched off if with the same time the rotor has to turn. But they are only turned on again if the whole thing moves over this sensor. So in a case, however, I don't know why, but maybe the rotor is not turning, then the merge blocks won't switch on again and merges here, and the rotor wanted to turn the thing in this direction, and it's already switched because the timer messed up and it's already switched. So also here, like now, and it's turning back again. And if you have a timer, the back merge block here will switch on again. So in this way, I can make sure that only if it's turning, the merge blocks are switched on again. We saw the pistons moving for both direction, up and down, and the turn. Well, that's it so far. Have fun further on. Thank you for watching and keep engineering. See you later.